Good evening. I'd like to call to order a regular meeting of the Watchung Borough Board of Education on December 9th, 2021 at 7 p.m. May we please stand for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Welcome to a meeting of the Board of Education of the Borough of Watchung. Please be advised that this and all meetings of the board are open to the public and media consistent with the Open Public Meetings Act, and that the advance notice required therein has been provided. This is a regular meeting of the Board of Education of the Borough of Watchung at which formal action may be taken. This meeting is being conducted remotely using communication technology with an option to attend in person. Instructions for joining the meeting and participating in public comments have been posted on the district website and sent to the Watchung Borough and the Watchung Public Library, as well as to the school community through an email blast. The public will have an opportunity to be heard as shown on the agenda at points of the meeting provided for the public to address the board. Members of the public also have been given the option to submit public comments to the board secretary via email or written letter no later than 24 hours in advance of the meeting. Individuals submitting comments via email or written letter must state their names and addresses. Recording or photographing other than for private personal use requires the consent of parents/guardians whose children may be included in the image. May we have a roll call, please?
Mr. Barbella,
Here.
Mr. Buccarelli,
Here.
Mrs. Harvey,
Here.
Mrs. Gracia,
Here.
Mr. Kraft, Mr. McDonald,
Here.
Mrs. Murad,
Here.
Mrs. Sidvani,
Here.
Mrs. Scharf.
Here.
Just for the record, everyone was here. I don't know if anyone, if I didn't hear Mr. Kraft through the microphone, but I heard him in
Check,
person.
check.
Okay, so all present.
Okay, we're going to go into board member comments. And we'll start with the special recognition of Jessica and Gracia. So Amber, if you would be able to read that, please.
It's a proclamation in honor of Jessica and Gracia. And it starts with, whereas Jessica and Gracia generously gave 3 years of service on the Watchung Board of Education from 2019 through 2021. And whereas Jessica and Gracia diligently served as the board president in 2019, served on and chaired board committees, including human resources and policy. And whereas Jessica and Gracia represented the Watchung Borough Board of Education as the Somerset County School Board Association delegate and alternate to Somerset County Educational Service Commission. And whereas Jessica and Gracia brought invaluable experience to the board issues with her negotiations background, inquisitive nature, and passion for education. And whereas Jessica and Gracia practiced independent thinking, gave invaluable guidance to the board and administration, and made decisions in the best interest of students and the community. And whereas Jessica and Gracia welcomed new board members and promoted the importance of the board members' knowledge of the institutional history of the district. And whereas Jessica and Gracia's experience, commitment, and sense of responsibility will be greatly missed. And whereas Jessica and Gracia maintained high expectations for the students, staff, and community, and advocated for academic excellence. And whereas Jessica and Gracia served on the board with integrity and respect for our community, volunteering countless hours with a mission to make this district the best it could be. And now, therefore, be it resolved that the Watchung Board of Education expresses deep appreciation for Jessica and Gracia's tireless efforts and valuable service to the district, recognizes all the people she touched through her dedicated volunteerism on the board, and wishes her continued health, happiness, and success in all her future endeavors. Thank you, Jessica.
Thank you, Amber. That was so kind. Thank you very much.
Are there any other board comments?
Well,
I'd like
I
to make a
just wanted,
comment.
oh, sorry.
I'd just like to say thank you, Jessica, for the 3 years of work with the board. Very, very much appreciated. Thank you for your time and commitment of time to the board.
Thank you, Joe. And I'll just say thank you to all the board members. Working with you and getting to know you better this past 3 years has been a highlight of the service on the board. Just to reflect briefly on my time on the board, I thought I'd share this closing thought with whoever needs to hear it. The National School Boards Association has said repeatedly in their work that the fundamental role of school boards is very simply to work with their communities to improve student achievement in their local public schools. Occasionally, I'll hear a misconception in Watchung that only current parents of district children should serve on school boards. The exact opposite is true. School boards need diverse members from all circumstances who represent the greater community. So I'm very happy that our two most recent appointees to the board, Kevin and Rita, and of course the incoming board member-elect that I happen to be married to, do not have children currently in our K-8 schools, but care enough about them to serve on the board. An organization made of parents advocating exclusively for the needs and wants of their own children who are currently enrolled is called a parent-teacher organization. And those are of great value to the district. I personally think ours has been exemplary. But school boards are different in that they're tasked with representing the aspirations of the entire community for its schools. So our entire community supports the schools, of course, by funding them, and our entire community is invested in the performance of the schools because school quality impacts our property values. So I am encouraged by the composition of the board as it reorganizes in January. I think it better reflects our community, which has a deep and long history of supporting its public schools. There might be sometimes a tendency for some boards or members to lose sight of this fundamental role, which is to work with their communities to improve student achievement, and get bogged down in procedure, committee structures, or the pursuit of specific or personal agendas. We should resist this tendency and work authentically with our community to improve student achievement. In the end, that's what makes great schools. So whether it's by forming ad hoc groups or just soliciting feedback and engaging in dialogue with groups other than those with which the board is already aligned, community support was a key and core component of the blue ribbon status that our school enjoyed in the past. So I think a fully engaged community whose interests are represented and respected by its Board of Education is critical to regaining that status. Please don't forget that. I look forward to seeing all the good that can be done in Watchung Borough School District by working with our wonderful community. Thank you for the opportunity to be of service.
Are there any other board member comments?
I just have one brief comment. I'd like to say thank you to Jessica for your service on the board. And Anthony, welcome. We look forward to serving with you as well. And if anybody from the public ever has a comment, a criticism that they'd like to make, we're always receptive to that. We just ask that you either make it through the board office's address or our board email addresses, and not to our personal addresses or emails. And that's all I have to say for today. Thank you.
And I just wanted to wish our community happy holidays and a healthy and safe new year. And I guess I just wanted to know, are there any other board member comments before we start or move on? Okay, so then we're going to move on to the superintendent's remarks.
Good evening, everyone. Good evening, everyone. I also want to recognize Mrs. Gracia for her dedicated service to our school community. On a personal note, going back to the fall of 2019, when I first started in the district, I was the beneficiary of your warm welcome, Jessica, and I saw firsthand how committed you were to making the schools the best they can be. Thank you for devoting your time and energy to the responsibilities as a board member. I wish you the best. And I also let you know that Connie assembled a nice commemorative plaque with your proclamation, and we'll make sure you get it. I also want to extend good wishes to Barbara Janicki in her retirement and thank her for her 15 years of dedicated service as a paraprofessional. We will honor all retirees at the end of the school year, but I want to take a moment to recognize Barbara as she enters her retirement at the end of this month. I'd also like to remind everyone that the referendum vote is set for Tuesday, December 14th. Polling location is the Fireman's Exempt Hall at 31 Mountain Boulevard. The polls will be open from 6 a.m. to 8 p.m. I sent a message earlier this week to our school community highlighting 3 important points, and I'd like to review those with everyone this evening. First and foremost, with this referendum, the district is addressing comprehensive infrastructural needs to ensure a safe, healthy physical learning environment for our students. Projects, which are specifically outlined on the district website, address wide-ranging district issues created by outdated heating and cooling systems, old building roofs, inadequate electrical technology and security infrastructure. Much of the interior upgrades are designed to enhance the educational environment in the schools and align them with our academic expectations and vision for learning. At Bayberry, the projects include replacing classroom casework, flooring, and bathrooms that are original to the school. That dates back to the 1960s. At Valley View, similar upgrades are necessary, but the projects go further and include reimagined instructional spaces that will directly benefit our students. Transforming a worn library media center into a learning commons that becomes the hub of the school is a significant step toward actualizing academic expectations and inspiring the 21st century skills of student inquiry, agency, and collaboration. Extending the learning commons into a revitalized courtyard and revamping the art room will complement our existing STEM lab and promote design thinking and creative problem solving. These are 21st century skills that are mandatory for preparing students to live, learn, and work in a global society. And if we're serious about advancing learning and actualizing academic achievement in our schools, we have to have educational spaces that inspire these expectations. Perhaps most importantly for the taxpayers in our community, the state has committed to pay roughly 1/3 of the total costs, but that's only if the referendum passes. Specifically, the state has deemed 96% of the projects eligible for debt service aid, which would result in the district receiving close to $5 million in state funds to defray the costs of the projects that total less than $15 million. The annual tax impact would be $267 per year on the average assessed home of $730,000. Now, that's less than 1/3 of the tax impact in the previous referendum in 2002. And as pointed out by the Echo Sentinel last week in an editorial, this is a way for the community to see some of its tax revenue, quote, return home and be used for worthy educational purposes. The board and administration have spent more than a year carefully planning this referendum, examining contingencies and preparing for the future. We're fortunate that our current physical space capacity is sufficient for future enrollment growth. Input has been offered by a range of stakeholders, including members of the public, and that input has been considered and in some cases adopted. If the referendum does not pass, the district will be forced to complete many of the infrastructure projects without the benefit of state aid and abandon the enhanced instructional spaces for our students. At the same time, the work would be extended over a much longer time frame because the district does not have the financial resources to undertake this work. In addition, the district would run the risk of other complications. If HVAC units, for example, fail suddenly, it could cause a school closure, and replacing the units could take 6 to 8 months. We have more specific information, as I've indicated in my message home on the referendum 2021 webpage, the district website. There we have the digital flyer that was shared and the informational video. You'll also find a projects list, facilities assessment, tax impact table, and frequently asked questions. Again, the vote is scheduled for Tuesday, December 14th. Next, I'd like to just update everyone on the extended quarantine period that was put in place late last week. With COVID cases rising across the state, our region has moved into the orange high activity level on the Cali report. Fortunately, this means that unvaccinated students who are identified as close contacts must quarantine for 14 days without an option to shorten the period with a negative test. Previously, the quarantine had been 10 days with an option to test out after 7. According to state guidelines, vaccinated students are not required to quarantine. Now, please understand, I want the community to know that this is a state directive. It comes from the New Jersey Department of Health. The district has no discretion in terms of the length of the quarantine or whether vaccinated and unvaccinated students have different sets of expectations for quarantine. To address the lengthier period of the quarantine, we've expanded our instructional support with more synchronous learning opportunities for our students who are directed to quarantine by our health offices. These supports have been put in place this week. So I ask everyone to please continue to screen your children each morning and keep them home if they are sick. We appreciate the ongoing support and really appreciate your patience and resilience as we continue to weather this pandemic. On a related note, our district physician is hosting the follow-up vaccine clinic at Bayberry tomorrow afternoon. Now, before turning this over to our special guests and our principals, I'm going to thank the Peter R. Marsh Foundation for its $1,000 donation for our music program. You'll see that item on the agenda tonight. And we also have Ms. Dakota, who is next on the agenda, and she is participating virtually, so we could hear from her.
Thank you, Mr. Alexis. Good evening. Tonight, I'd like to take a few moments to highlight our district's before and after care program. Both the before and after care program have been open since the first day of the 2021-22 regular school year. Before care is open from 7 a.m. until 8:30 a.m. in the Bayberry All-Purpose Room. Aftercare is open each day that school's in session from dismissal until 6:30, also in the Bayberry All-Purpose Room. While in before and after care, under the supervision of our program staff, our students have access to a variety of toys, games, puzzles, craft activities, sticker activities, reading material, movie watching, and snack time. There is time for homework to be completed in aftercare and time in before care for homework to be reviewed. In addition to our board-approved staff, tonight the board is being asked to approve volunteers from the Watchung Hills Regional High School Interact Club to assist our staff in the aftercare program. We look forward to having them join us in our after-school program. Parents can find more information and registration form on the before and after care website. Thank you.
Okay. Before the pandemic, we had started a practice of inviting students to give the monthly school highlights at board meetings. Tonight, we're pleased to return to that practice. Principal Kidd, would you kindly introduce our student council representatives here tonight?
The first student I'd like to introduce is our student council president, who is joining us virtually, Chelsea Jenkins. Can you please let her in and move her up to present?
Okay, can you hear me?
Yes, we hear you.
Okay, so I'll be reading the Bayberry monthly report. And on November 15th, students celebrated National Indigenous Peoples Month with the PTO sponsored assembly on the life of Lipe. Students enjoyed an engaging presentation on engaged with Lenape culture, including dress, tools, music, and games. In the classroom, students were engaged with a variety of activities to learn about Native people, including crafts, literature, and hands-on activities. Students in first grade continued the Bayberry Traditional Harvest Festival, where students practiced weaving, making homemade butter, and singing songs. Students and staff celebrated Friendsgiving on November 23rd with Philly pretzels donated by the WEF. This was a great way to end the week and begin the Thanksgiving holiday. Thank you, WEF. On December 1st, students were treated to a preview of the Nutcracker by a local dance company, Watchung Rock Dance. Students watched in awe at the performance while they ate their lunch. Many of the dancers were currently at Valley View students and former Bayberry students. Our students were excited to make the connection to this performance and the Nutcracker songs they were singing in music class with Mrs. Riley. On December 2nd and 3rd, students enjoyed shopping for the family and friends at the PTO Holiday Boutique. Our preschool students will be shopping tomorrow at a special preschool boutique. For their community service project, third grade students collected donations for two families in the Adoptive Family Program, sponsored by the Heart of Watchung. Bayberry staff adopted a family as well, providing generous donations to a family in need. We appreciate the overwhelming support and are excited to bring holiday cheer and joy to our community. Bayberry clubs will start next week. We are excited to offer students opportunities to socialize and explore coding and robotics, sports, reading, arts and crafts, and games. Finally, our trimester ended on December 3rd, and report cards will be available in Genesis tomorrow. We are really proud of our students' accomplishments this trimester and look forward to helping them reach their goals in the future. And that's it.
Thank you,
Thank you
Chelsea.
so much,
That was
Chelsea. Great
amazing.
job.
Can I
Ma'am,
just
I'd now
add
like to
one thing?
introduce- Go
I'm
ahead,
sorry.
Vicky.
I just wanted to also wish Barbara Janicki a happy retirement. I know the students and the staff at Bayberry will miss her greatly. And thanks again, Chelsea. Good job.
I'd now like to introduce one of our vice presidents for our student council, Mr. Pierce Gorenstein.
Good evening, everyone. My name is Pierce Winstein, and I'm Valley View Student Council Co-Vice President. I'm happy to present the Valley View Principals Report this month. During the month of November, teachers incorporated lessons regarding the contributions of Indigenous peoples through explorations of literature, art, and music. Valley View also celebrated our second annual Friendsgiving, sponsored by the Watchung Education Foundation. Students and staff enjoyed pizza, snacks, and each other's company on the half day before the Thanksgiving holiday. We ended the month of November with our PTO-sponsored holiday boutique, where students were able to shop on multiple vendors to find gifts for families and friends. For the month of December, the Valley View Student Council is encouraging our students and staff to participate in a 21-day gratitude challenge. Each day holds a daily act of gratitude that we hope becomes a regular practice. The Community Outreach Club at Valley View collected donations for the Adopt a Family program sponsored by the Hertz of Watchung. We were thrilled with the show of generosity from our school community and excited to provide an amazing experience for our adopted families. Our basketball season began on December 3rd. It is wonderful to see our athletes back on the court. Please come out to cheer for our Mountaineers. The schedule is posted on the Valley View website calendar. This week, December 6th through 10th, is Hour of Code Week. This is a week-long global movement celebrating the computer science field by encouraging every student to code for at least 1 hour. Students were given a choice board of coding activities and encouraged to participate by receiving raffle tickets for each hour completed. Our friends at IBM donated items for prizes as well as an icy party for the top 10 coders. All students will also be engaged in a coding activity with Ms. Keene, our media center specialist, during the science classes. In addition, our coding and robotics club is opened up for all students to participate in a cybersecurity lab. Students were extremely excited to extend the traditional one-day event to a week of coding fun. Looking ahead, our Community Outreach Club has extended the deadline for food donations through the month of January for our grade level food battle competition. Please drop any non-perishable foods off at the main office labeled with the student's grade level. The high school invited all the 8th grade students from the sending districts to hear the band and choir perform on December 23rd. We are looking forward to the first of many great experiences for our 8th grade transition. Best wishes to everyone for a healthy and happy winter break. Thank you.
Nicely done, Pierce. I'd also like to extend gratitude on behalf of all of the Watchung educators for the beautiful tree lighting ceremony and festivities. We were definitely honored to be there and to be the focus of such wonderful attention. Enjoy the holidays, everyone.
We have additional special guests this evening. We have our Valley View STEM teachers, Ms. Pistorius and Ms. Backish. Ladies, could you please introduce our student guests and explain a little bit about the presentation that everyone will hear?
Hello, I'm Diana Backash, and this is Morgan Pistorius. Last meeting, we presented on design thinking and how we do that in our 5th and 7th grade classrooms. And tonight we are lucky to have some students with us who wanted to share their culminating projects. First up, we have Ari and Emily from 5th grade sharing their Back to the Past 8. Oh, yeah.
Hello, this is our Game Design Lab final project. This is our game instruction sheet that we designed on Canva. We added pictures to describe our game, and it was printed out of a colored printer.
So we designed the characters using Tinkercad. We have 6 game pieces and 2 dice.
These are our cards we designed. They are trivia cards with answers on the back to help players play the game. Players start at the starting tile 2021 and go back to the past. They pick up a trivia card each time they roll the dice, and they have to answer correctly to continue playing. So the game ends once you land back on the 2021. This is also our logo that we designed on Adobe Illustrator. It was printed out of a vinyl printer and we attached it to our game board. After we finished attaching everything to our game board, we colored it in with markers to add color.
So we're really happy that Emily and Ari were able to join us and tell us a little bit about how they went through the design process. They mentioned some of the technology and software that they were able to use to create these pieces. So they used used Canva and the poster printer to do their instruction sheet and their game cards. They used Tinkercad to design their game pieces, an Adobe Illustrator to design the logo and the laser cut game board. So this was a great exposure to all the tools and the possibilities that we have in the STEM lab, and they'll use these skills as they journey with us through 6th, 7th, and 8th grade.
So next up, we have Miranda. She is in our 7th grade class, and she's going to be sharing the presentation her and her group members created for the Grand Design Challenge. In this challenge, students had to imagine they had been hired to design a hydroponic system for an apartment building in Atlanta. And this presentation is directed towards those plans.
So this is the Fresh Food Engineers vertical farming. And I'd like to acknowledge the people in my group who can be here today: Khan, Emily, Christian, and Tanishka. So to the right, there's a design that we decided not to use. And our final design is on the bottom. And I'll talk about that a little later. So our team members each brainstormed on our own to try to come up with some different ideas and try to solve the problem, which was to create an apartment building for vertical farming for people in Atlanta, Georgia, who do not have access to fresh foods. So before we were able to design our final design, there were some ideas that we decided would not work for the following reasons. We decided that we should not use the ebb and flow system in our design because we do not have as much experience with that type of system. We decided to use the aeroponics system. So we thought that our final design met all the criteria that were presented in the challenge. We have a lot of experience with the aeroponics system, and we thought that it would be a good type of system to use for vertical farming. We also thought that our final design took advantage of as much sunlight as possible throughout the sides of the buildings and also used the roof so we'd be able to grow bigger plants. Lastly, we thought that the design that we decided to use looked organized. We also came up with ways for the food to be harvested and planted that was easy for the residents to access. So this design that our group decided for a final recommendation, and we think that this is the best solution to the challenges and the criteria that was presented to us. Not only does our design take advantage of as much sunlight as possible by having vertical gardens on 2 sides of the buildings, while allowing for 2 sides of the buildings to have windows for the residents' apartments, but there are also plants that are grown hydroponically on the roof of the building. Just in case there is not enough sunlight on some sides for the plants to grow, we have also installed lights above our plants that residents can turn off and on depending if there is enough sunlight for our plants on different days. This also provides maximum space for growing fruits and vegetables all year round in order to provide residents with the fresh food they need all year. So yeah, the rest is just explaining more. So our team collected data to see which foods people ate the most, and this data included foods such as carrots, cucumbers, lettuce, potatoes, tomatoes, grapes, raspberries, strawberries, basil, oregano, peppermint, and thyme. As a result of this data, we decided to plant these plants in our system. So this system works by the nutrient solution stored in the reservoir. And the nutrient solution is pumped up through the inflow tube that is connected to the growing chamber. When the water travels through the inflow tube to the growing chamber after getting pumped up through the inflow tube by the pump, then the nutrient solution is pumped through the tube in the growing chamber and then is sprayed onto the plant's roots through misters that are put into the tube. The plants are secured in neck cups, and there are various holes in the lids of the nutrient solution that is left over and then travels through a hole in the bottom of the growing chamber, and then reservoir, where the process starts all over again. The pump and the lights are both on timers, so they are not running all day and all night. The light is hung from PVC pipes above the growing chamber that is part of the base of our structure. If we can make some improvements to our structure, we would want to improve the height and the misters are in the growing chamber so that we can make sure that they reach all the plant's roots easily. We would also want to make sure that a reservoir correctly fits in between the PVC pipes in the middle, so we do not have to use twine to make sure that it is definitely secure. Oh, and that's our hydroponic system. So the purpose of our work was vertical farming in cities, and they needed so that residents are able to get fresh foods and not have to go to farmers markets where the fresh food is expensive. Vertical farming allows people in cities like Atlanta to be able to get fresh foods that they need, even if they do not have enough space for a regular soil garden. Hydroponics is a good approach because it uses less space to grow food than the soil farming, allowing people to use it in cities where there is less space for using soil farming. Hydroponics also uses less water than soil farming because the water in the system is reduced over and over again. This will help people who live in apartments to get the food that they need because they will not be able to grow it in their apartments without having to use land like regular soil farming. They also acquire the different types of vegetables and fruits that are normally eaten through vertical farming in their apartment building, instead of having to go to a supermarket or a farmer's market to get the food. We collected data from the plants that we grew in our hydroponic system. This included the date, the pH, the depth, and then the plants. So thank you. We hope that you have enjoyed our presentation on our final recommendation for you, and I hope that you will use our idea to build a vertical garden in order to provide food for residents in apartment buildings in Atlanta, Georgia. We have enjoyed this process a lot, and we hope that you will consider working with us again.
So we really think that this culminating project was such an amazing representation of what design thinking is supposed to be and what we're trying to instill in our students. And we're just so lucky to have some really incredible students that were able to present for us today and show you what they have been working on for so long in all of marking period 1. So thank you for having us. Thank you.
Ladies, thank you very much. It was wonderful to hear all about the STEM program last month, but it's even better to see the students here showing how they're actualizing that learning in the STEM lab itself. So thank you. And thank you to all of our students. That was really wonderful. Last is an update on enrollment. As you see on the agenda, we now have 630 students, 14 more than we had at the start of the year. And let me also echo the gratitude to the Rescue Squad for its kind recognition of our educators, and to WEF for a wonderful Friendsgiving celebration last month. Warm wishes to everyone for the upcoming holiday season. Thank you.
Thank you, George. Committee reports. Kevin, can you please give the Human Resources Committee update?
Yes, thanks, Tori. The Human Resource and Personnel Committee met this past Tuesday at 4:30. We had several things that we discussed, and they are, I believe, all on for the agenda tonight. The first item was a health services coordinator stipend. And this is basically to coordinate district-wide services above and beyond the normal duties for a full-time nurse. And it's our hope that, the stipend is going to help retain our nursing staff and also make sure that we don't end up in a position where we're searching for a nurse for a year like we did for the Bayberry nurse that luckily we were able to find a full-time nurse finally. The next item we discussed was we have several volunteers. One is for a gold award project from the high school. And she will be conducting a reading enrichment program for our students. So we're very excited about that. We're also excited that we have the Impact Club. These students from the high school will come down to work with kids in the aftercare program. So that's something else that we're excited for too. And part of the health service coordinator position would actually be tracking the health screening information for our volunteers. So that's another part of the first item that we had discussed. Additionally, we have some co-curricular appointments on for tonight. We're very pleased that this year we're going to have a play, and so there's an assistant theater director position that's listed. We also have some scoreboard operators positions listed too. There are a few items on for tonight that are leave approvals and leave replacement approvals, as well as approval for 2 new substitutes for the district. So we're excited to have these additional substitutes to add to our current group. And then lastly, there's a paraprofessional replacement for tonight as well. And that's all that I have.
Thank you, Kevin. Rich, can you please give the Operations Finance Committee report?
Yeah, I'll give the one. We had 2 meetings, one on November 22nd, one on December 1st. I'll do the one for November 22nd. I was unfortunately unable to attend the December 1st one because of a conflict. On November 22nd, we discussed solely our efforts to get all the information possible for the proposed referendum to the public via our website. We discussed the attendance and the reception at the in-person meetings at the schools. And we also talked about the video that you see on the website. So our intention was just to get as much information to the public as we possibly could. That is all factual and accurate. Adam, would you be so kind as to do the December 1st report?
It's going to be you, Joe.
Sorry?
For the second. Okay, Adam, you're going to do it. Okay.
Adam's microphone's not on.
Thanks, Rich. Much better. So we met on Wednesday, December 1st. As Rich mentioned, he wasn't able to join us, but Joe, Dory, Mr. Alexis, and Mr. Pepe were with us. We discussed the next steps with the potential referendum. We discussed the remaining steps in educating the public, continuing to add relevant information to the referendum 2021 webpage, and continuing to disseminate information. We also discussed in-person board meetings. The administration recommended moving to hybrid board meetings, beginning with the reorganization meeting in January and inviting board members to attend the December board meeting, as you can see, in person to provide an opportunity to test run the hybrid technology. And clearly we were in favor of this approach. The COVID vaccination or testing requirement for contractors. So Mr. Pepe informed the committee that Governor Murphy's executive order number 271 requires all contractors to ensure that all workers who come to a school facility are either fully vaccinated or are being tested weekly. The committee was in favor of using the cover letter and attestation form developed by Mr. Spano to ensure compliance with this executive order. the agenda items that you'll see today include payment of bills, transfers, financial reports, acceptance of the school security grant allocations, revised authorization of submission and acceptance of the ARP grant, sale of surplus and/or outdated property, disposal of surplus, broken, and/or outdated property, professional travel and related expenses, and the contract for legal services for 2022. We do not have a meeting scheduled yet. Additional topics discussed were we had a request from a single council member for enrollment data, and we talked about the importance of following protocols when requesting interagency data sharing. Moving forward, requests for Board of Ed data should come from the mayor, who is our liaison, or from a town council committee. And the Phillips Field proposed lease agreement, at the time, we did not have an update, but I understand Mr. Pepe had an opportunity to join the Little League board meeting and has reopened discussions with the board, with the Watchung Little League board. On the curriculum?
Yes.
All
please.
right. Curriculum Committee, we met on Thursday, December 2nd at 4:30. Jennifer, Amber, Dory, and I were there, as well as Mr. Alexis, Mr. Toda, Mrs. Kidd, Ms. Fickner. We discussed design thinking. The committee discussed input offered by one of our board members with experience regarding the nature of design thinking. There was also a discussion of the current approach and its emphasis on authenticity and empathy. Student hydroponics presentation that you saw today was discussed. We discussed the holiday observance survey results. We also discussed the high school's decision and potential options for next year's calendar. We decided to postpone the decision. The administration is going to design a proposed calendar for 22-23, and we will continue to discuss at the next meeting in January. As for the high school calendar, they decided to move one of their October professional development days from October to August. So there will be 3 professional development days before school begins and only 1 in October. The committee discussed options for the district calendar 2022-2023, and we'll revisit the discussion at its January meeting. Bayberry Clubs update. There's been a strong response to the clubs, which is fantastic. And the holiday boutique was also discussed, which from my point of view was a big success. I got some awesome gifts for my kids. Valley View fundraisers. Oh, and so thank you for all the volunteers who made that holiday boutique a success. Valley View fundraisers. There were a series of student fundraisers that we discussed. The Valley View concert that Kevin mentioned, the band and choral concerts will take place at the high school on January 21st. The musical this year will be Peter Pan. And Valley View is also looking into the possibility of using the high school Performing Arts Center for the musical in March. Principal Kidd also gave a brief update on field trip planning for the spring. And we have on the agenda today a approval for the first one. Valley View commencement date is going to be June 15th at 6 p.m. It'll be outdoors again. And our rain date is the following day, June 16th. Gifted and talented update. The principals gave an update on the screening based on referrals and the kinds of competitions the students will participate in. They also discussed their vision for making the program broader and more inclusive through more efficient universal testing in grades 2 and 5. The goal is to make sure students have the most appropriate level of challenge, especially when students develop and mature at different rates. The principals address questions regarding differentiated instruction. They will review different models and make recommendations to Mr. Alexis in the spring. Special Ed and 504 updates. ESL enrollment has nearly doubled based on new students who moved into the district. The growth is causing a shift in program requirements. Staffing implications were discussed. Mr. Toda is working on the new 3-year plan based on new state requirements. Mr. Toda also explained that she has seen more evaluation referrals. Many have been sent back for general ed interventions. There's been a similar pattern with 504 referrals. The process requires teacher input and medical documentation for eligibility. Evaluation timelines are being followed despite staffing challenges. She also reported that we now have 58 students in aftercare, and she's excited to have volunteers from the high school Interact Club that we discussed today, working with the kids. The dyslexia screening program has been written and is close to being ready for implementation. She also attended the CPAG meeting in November. Other items raised during the meeting,
The history of the homework club, which was akin to a 2-day per week quiet study hall after school, was explained. Currently, the Pursuit of Excellence program is used to offer additional instruction for students in need. The Media Center at Bayberry is Media Center specialist is part-time, so library time is limited for classes. There was a suggestion of having possible PTO volunteers to assist with reshelving books in the hopes of allowing the Media Center specialist more time with classes and students. Hour of Code, Computer Science Week, fun activities planned for Valley View students that involve the science classes and the coding club. The teachers have been taking advantage of the collaboration with IBM, which we heard tonight. And Go Math and iReady. Last was a discussion about the differences in instructional approaches between the two programs. This is being assessed by the administration to determine the future of Go Math. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Adam. Joe, can you please give the policy committee report?
Sure. So briefly, on Monday, December 6th, we talked about a policy and regulation, both mandatory, that are on the agenda tonight. First is the safety plan for healthcare settings and school buildings for COVID-19. This is a mandatory new policy. In essence, the school district already had a plan. This just more so codifies and formalizes the need to have such plan in place. So there wasn't much work effort there other than adopting the plan. And then secondly, some modest revisions to the use of school facilities, which was an existing policy and regulation. And that policy and regulation provided more flexibility, and to provide some background on the use of school facilities, it simply allows third parties to use the school facilities. In most cases, these are nonprofits or local groups that help support the schools in many cases. And the point of the regulation in our policy is simply to provide us some buffer in the event that some of these gatherings are large and require resources in terms of our custodians, which has a cost to the school district. So it's obviously intended to just compensate in those limited instances. Often the gatherings are small, they're fundraisers, they support the school, so there would not be a cost associated with that. And the revisions made provides the superintendent that additional flexibility, so that cost would only be incurred in those situations where there was a meaningful cleanup and added hours by the facility staff to support the event. So that was it for the policy and regulation for use of school facilities.
Okay, thank you, Joe. Board liaison reports. Rich, can you give the legislative liaison update?
No updates on legislative matters.
Adam and Amber, can you please give the community engagement liaisons update?
I don't have an update.
No updates.
Okay. Kevin, can you please give us any update from the Somerset County Educational Services Commission?
I don't have any updates for this meeting, Dory. Thanks.
And Jessica, the Somerset County School Boards Association?
Their last meeting for the calendar year is actually going on right now, so I'm missing that, and so no report.
And Amber, anything from the New Jersey School Boards Association?
There's no update and no report. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. And community engagement from the PTO is anything from Mrs. Roberto Ferrara? Is there an update? Yep, she has her hands raised.
Good evening, everyone. Currently, the PTO is working on various events, which include food sales. The second window is now open for parents to purchase food sales for their children. Spirit Wear is going on. They are constantly changing all of their designs, so please look forward to that. The yearbook for Bayberry, our school store, the birthday signs, Amazon Smiles, The holiday boutique just concluded, which was a great success. And we are always looking for volunteers. So if you're interested in volunteering, please visit our website at watchungpto.com and sign up. Our next upcoming meeting is this Tuesday, December 14th at 7:30 p.m. via Zoom. See you guys there. Thank you.
Thank you. For WEF, is there anyone on Mrs. Kokiata or anyone from WEF who would like to give an update? Okay, I don't see any hands raised. Mrs. Newsome or anyone from CPAG to give an update for CPAG?
I'll give an update. The pies were delicious.
Okay, and then Mrs. Sims or anyone from the Watchung IDEA, is there any update from that group? I don't see any hands raised. So comments from the public on agenda items. We welcome input from the public. There are 2 times during the meeting when the public is invited to speak. The first opportunity to comment on agenda items only is now. The second opportunity for public comment is towards the end of the meeting. Total time allotted for public comment is 30 minutes. Before you make your comment, please state your name and address. In the event it appears the public comment portion of the meeting may exceed 30 minutes, the presiding officer may limit each statement made by a participant to 3 minutes duration. Comments submitted to the board secretary prior to the meeting will be read first. Our public forums are not structured as question and answer session, but rather are offered as opportunities to share input with the board. In instances where the board feels a response is needed, the presiding officer or superintendent will address the comment. New Jersey statutes do not permit the board to discuss personnel or hiring in public session. Names of students should not be used. Mr. Pepe, will you please read the statement to the recording of this meeting?
Members of the public should consider their comments in light of legal rights of those affected and identified in their comments, and be aware that they are personally, legally responsible with potential liability for comments that they make to the board. The board shall not be held liable for comments made by members of the public.
Okay, I don't see any hands raised and no one here.
We have a hand.
Oh, we do? Oh, yeah.
Hi, can you hear me?
Yes, we can.
Okay, my question is about, there was a report on the Human Resources Committee, so I do have a question about that. I'm hoping this is the proper time to ask this question or make my comment.
Sure, yes.
Okay. Good evening, Mr. Alexis and Board of Ed members. My name is Lillian Abadir Cho. I live at 77 High Tor Drive. While I've only been a resident at Watchung for a very short time, I'm actually here to advocate for my profession, but more importantly for the students at Bayberry. It is my understanding that the school counselor at Bayberry is only part-time. My hope is that as you put together the budget for the 21-22 school year, you will consider making the school counselor position a full-time position. I just know from my profession that depression and anxiety have increased since the pandemic. Therapists, outside therapists are overbooked and you can barely get an appointment for months. Our kids' mental health has needed more support and attention more than ever this year. I've been a school counselor for 20 years and I've never seen it this bad. My personal office is a triage, and once I put out one fire, there's another one right behind it. So I could not imagine missing a day and not doing this and having to do this job every other day. It must be near impossible for the school counselor at Bayberry to catch up and keep up with all the social issues anxiety, and depression that is happening with today's children. Social issues are really on the rise. Kids are in need of mediation because some, not all, have forgotten how to act or treat each other. SEL, I know, is taught in health by the classroom teachers, but I really feel for these teachers. They already have their hands full. And with only a part-time counselor on days that she is not in the building, then it's left for the teachers to mediate playground issues, taking away from time in the classroom. So I really feel that life skills, mental health, teaching the SEL competencies, also known as character ed, are just as important as math, reading, and writing, and social skills are needed for the rest of their life. So that this way, I feel that much can be prevented from early intervention. So my question or my comment is, I really hope that it will be considered, or will it be considered for the 21-22 school year budget, that the school counselor position at Bayberry be made a full-time position.
Okay, great. Thank you so much. Are there any other comments on agenda items? I don't see any other hands raised. Okay, so I'm going to move on to the action items. Jen, can you please move administrative items?
Yes. I move A1, approve minutes of previous meeting. A2, accept school security drill report. A3, approve clinical affiliation agreement with Keene University. A4, approve date for 8th grade commencement ceremony. And A5, approve revised safe reopening plan.
Is there a second?
Second.
Is there any discussion? Okay, can we have roll call, please?
Mr. Barbella,
Yes.
Mr. Buccarelli,
Yes.
Mrs. Ingracia,
Yes.
Mr. Kraft,
Yes.
Mr. McDonald,
Yes.
Mrs. Murad,
Yes.
Mrs. Sedvani,
Yes.
Mrs. Scharf,
Yes.
and Mrs. Harvey.
Yes.
Motion's passed.
Kevin, can you please move personnel items?
Yes. I move personnel items B1, establish health services coordinator stipend. B2, approve health services coordinator stipend. B3, approve Watchung Hills Regional High School student volunteer. B4, approve WHRHS student volunteers aftercare program. B5, appoint Bayberry paraprofessional. B6, appoint district substitutes, revised. B7, approve Valley View additional classes. B8, appoint before and aftercare staff, revised. B9, appoint Bayberry co-curricular, revised. B10, appoint Valley View co-curricular, revised. B11, approve request to extend maternity leave of absence. B12, appoint preschool leave replacement teacher, Bayberry School, revised. B13, approve request to extend maternity leave of absence. B14, appoint special education leave replacement teacher, Bayberry School, revised. B15, approve school psychologist leave replacement, revised. B16, approve medical leave. B17, approve medical leave. B18, approve unpaid leave of absence. And B19, appoint occupational therapist intern.
Okay, can we get a second?
Second.
Any discussion?
I just want to point out, there's a lot of good stuff going on in these. I'm really excited about having the Girl Scout Award project starting up. I was there when Julia presented to us, and we talked about it at a previous meeting, but she is extremely impressive. This project that she's put together is amazing, and I can't wait for our students to really benefit from it. I love that the high school is going to be sending volunteers down to interact with our elementary school kids. I know a lot of people in town have been asking, since Mr. Alexis came from the high school, where's the interaction? Well, here's a big part of it. And there's obviously a lot more going on behind the scenes than we see, but it's exciting to have the high school kids come down and interact with our kids. Also, all these co-curriculars, I really appreciate all the teachers volunteering / obviously taking their time and leading these clubs. The kids are extremely excited. It really rounds out their education and just a lot of good stuff going on. I just want to make sure we really give it the attention it deserves.
And if I may, B6, the substitutes, thank you substitutes, thank you administrators for making this happen. In a pandemic, to see this many substitutes on an agenda is just absolutely amazing. And as to B2, as we know her in my house, Nurse Julie, always just grace under pressure and fire and just absolutely doing an amazing job.
Okay, can we have a roll call, please?
Mr. Barbella,
Yes.
Mr. Buccarelli,
Yes.
Mrs. Ingracia,
Yes.
Mr. Kraft,
Yes.
Mr. McDonald,
Yes.
Mrs. Murad,
Yes.
Mrs. Sedvani,
Yes.
Mrs. Scharf,
Yes.
Mrs. Harvey.
Yes.
All 19 motions pass.
Hey, Rich, can you please move operation items?
Yes. I move item C1, approved payment of bills. C2, approved transfer of funds. C3, accept financial reports. C4, authorize application for the ESSER grant. C5, accept Children's Future Bond Act funds grant. C6, approve professional services contract for the board attorney. C7, approve participation in a cooperative pricing system. C8, authorize sale of surplus and/or outdated property. C9, accept Peter R. Marsh Foundation music grant with gratitude. And C10, approve professional travel and related expenses.
Can we get a second?
Second.
Any discussion?
With gratitude for the grant, I have just, I don't know if this is an operations thing, but the High Five Adventure Learning, could someone just explain that? Never seen that before. Oh, I'm sorry, and it's C10, I think, right? The last one, C10, travel related expenses.
Actually, I just got bumped off, so I'm coming back on. Yes, this is the second part of training that this is the second time it's been on. But yes, it's required training in order to run the program. And our new phys ed teacher, Mr. Leslie, is continuing in that educational program.
Okay.
Okay, roll call, please.
Mr. Barbella,
Yes.
Mr. Buccarelli,
Yes.
Mrs. Ingracia,
Yes.
Mr. Kraft,
Yes.
Mr. McDonald,
Yes.
Mrs. Murad,
Yes.
Mrs. Sedvani,
Yes.
Mrs. Scharf,
Yes.
and Mrs. Harvey.
Yes.
Motions pass.
Adam, can you please move curriculum items?
Sure. I'd like to move items D1, approve student club fundraisers, and D2, approve the Valley View field trip.
Is there a second?
Second.
Any discussion?
I'm just thrilled to see the 8th grade getting back up there to the high school.
Can we have a roll call, please?
Mr. Barbella,
Yes.
Mr. Beccarelli,
Yes.
Mrs. Ingracia,
Yes.
Mr. Kraft,
Yes.
Mr. McDonald,
Yes.
Mrs. Murad,
Yes.
Mrs. Sedvani,
Yes.
Mrs. Sharf,
Yes.
Mrs. Harvey.
Yes.
Motion's passed.
Hey, Joe, can you please move policy items?
Sure. Move E1, approve policies and regulation, first reading, safety plan and healthcare settings in school buildings, COVID-19, and use of school facilities.
Is there a second?
Second.
Any discussion? Roll call, please.
Mr. Barbella,
Yes.
Mr. Beccarelli,
Yes.
Mrs. Ingracia,
Yes.
Mr. Kraft,
Yes.
Mr. McDonald,
Yes.
Mrs. Murad,
Yes.
Mrs. Sedvani,
Yes.
Mrs. Sharf,
Yes.
and Mrs. Harvey.
Yes.
Motion passes.
Okay, we're going to move on to board business. Is there any board business to discuss?
I have something, if I may.
Sure.
It really saddens me actually to have to talk about this. As you all know, the referendum vote is this coming Tuesday. And yesterday I was dismayed to receive in the mail something apparently the whole town got, which is a flyer that's just chock full of misinformation and untruthful statements on the referendum. It was paid for by a person or group called Concerned Citizens for Watchung Education. Don't know who that is. But it contains a lot of misleading information. And since the whole town got it, I feel like I have, I'm the chairman of the Operations and Finance Committee, who along with the entire board worked, long and hard on this. I feel like I have to correct some of the misinformation in this flyer. First of all, it says that there's $6.5 million to replace HVAC equipment. It's funny the way they put this. They do it as a question, so it's not a statement, without an independent engineering report, question mark. Well, that's ludicrous. We've been working with our architects and engineers, DRG, for the past 2+ years on a long-range plan and a comprehensive facilities assessment. We've posted the findings of that on the website. And let me just go into this facilities, because the whole the whole theme seems to be, why do we need this? We have 16 on HVAC. We have 16 rooftop units. 7 of them are 3 years past their useful life, and this is because we never redid the referendum that expired 5 years ago. And it's been, one of my missions as a board member for the past 3 years to do what we need to replace that. So 3 are past their useful life. The other 9 already had to be replaced. They were replaced without, they were paid without any referendum made. So we didn't have a referendum in place, 9 units had to replace. There are 78 other significant HVAC units that have only 2 years left in their useful life. These are the things that heat and cool the classrooms. The RTUs are partly for classrooms, but mostly for the common area spaces and the larger spaces. So the RTUs, 9 of them failed and had to be replaced. 78 of these other smaller units will have to be replaced within 2 years. Already, a lot of them aren't working well. You know, in an era of COVID, when you don't have AC and you don't have good air circulation and you want to delay doing something on it, it's not a good policy. Secondly, it says 8 million more to remodel bathrooms, media center, cabinetry, outdoor space, art, and music rooms. Another question, excuse me. Well, yeah, no, it's not $8 million just for that. So the question, if that was a question, I'll answer it. It's not just $8 million for that. At the front of it, it says that these aren't academically oriented projects, but the media center is certainly an academically oriented project. But just a little over half of that $8 million is for the bathrooms, the media center, the cabinetry, the outdoor space, and the art and music rooms. And when we say bathrooms, it's not like we're putting in gold toilets. We're making them ADA accessible. We're redoing the bathrooms so that our temporarily or permanently disabled students can have access to our facilities. Okay, the next thing is they referenced the Warren Township Schools modest referendum with 0 tax increases. Why can't Watchung? Another question. Well, I'll tell you why Watchung can't. The Warren referendum is $9 million. Warren is funding $6 million of that from their capital reserve. Because we've never renewed portions of the last referendum when it expired 5 years ago, we've had to pay for capital replacements out of our own capital fund. We have less than $1 million in our capital reserve. We don't have enough capital reserve that a responsible board would have. Percentage-wise, it's at the bottom of all of our sending districts, and all of our districts that we've surveyed, they're at about the same size as Watchung. So, if we have to replace any of this equipment, we don't have any of the money. The most we'd be able to get from state aid from that $1 million is about $300,000. And then we'd have nothing in our capital reserve. So whoever wrote this, that's why can't Watchung. And then it says that it's been poorly planned. I think, a lot of people spent a lot of time on this, people with broad financial expertise, facilities expertise. We collaborated very, very closely with the administration. We collaborated with our architects and engineers, our attorneys, and our finance people. It could be somebody's opinion that it was poorly planned, but I really take exception to that. And then it says, if you vote no, there will be a better referendum in 2022. Well, this is virtually impossible. And I'll tell you why. Inflation is here. There is no question whatsoever that if we delay this referendum, if the referendum doesn't pass, Watchung taxpayers will get less for their money in the future. Delay has major, major impacts. Number one, everything will cost more. You'll get less for your money. Number two, interest rates will go up. You'll pay more money for debt service, and you'll get nothing in by way of school improvements. And the third thing is, I've been on this board for 3 years. Multiple units have failed. They're going to continue to fail because they're past their useful life. And we're going to stick the taxpayers of Watchung with paying 100% of repairing those or replacing them without any state aid. So it really is a disservice to the taxpayers of Watchung to make this type of economic argument. And it's a huge disservice to the children to put out statements like this that are misleading and untrue. My name is Rich Buccarelli. I chair the Operations and Finance Committee. I do not lie. I do not intentionally mislead people. And I'm not anonymous. And so I hope the people of Watchung will understand all that and take this piece of paper for what it's worth. And maybe a clue as to what it's worth is the fact that right in big red letters, right in the middle of the thing, they misspell the word school. So I urge everybody to vote on Tuesday, but I want them to vote based on facts and not misinformation. Thank you very much.
Okay, go ahead, I'm sorry.
So I'd like to thank you, Rich, for those comments, and I'd like to add a little bit about the referendum as well. So I'm also on the Operations Committee, and I'm very proud of the work we've done. You know, I also received the flyer and was disappointed by it because of the omissions, because of the spin. So I'm going to give my personal opinion. This is not the opinion of the board. This is my personal opinion about the referendum next week. So first, everyone should vote with their conscience, and that's fine. Everyone's going to have a different opinion. But first, to dispel some of the misinformation that somehow this referendum is haphazard, that we just came about it and didn't do any due diligence. We've been talking about the need for this referendum for 2 years. The last year, we've spent in great detail through the Operations Committee and countless hours with engineers, architects, bond counsel, the superintendent. We've discussed this endlessly. Some of those hours, believe me, I wish I had back. So for anyone, and I appreciate that the community might not see this, we do have committees. We're not always in front of the camera, and we're working on these things. So I do take it seriously, and in my opinion, we took too long. We frankly slowed down the process to address some of the concerns of other board members, and did our best. So I do agree with Rich that if anything, this was not a thoughtless process. We took it seriously. We understand, of course, that this adds some modest tax burden, but we get a lot of bang for our buck. Secondly, what I'd like to say about it is that as a board member, in my opinion, we have an important role to support the superintendent. And by extension, that also means the school educators and the students. That doesn't mean we sheepishly accept everything that the superintendent says, with all due respect to Mr. Alexis. To the contrary, it's a credible challenge. We ask a lot of questions. We want to understand what the problems and issues are involved in our schools. When I joined the Operations Committee at the beginning of the year, I can tell you with sincere probity, I was genuinely depressed to see the laundry list of issues that we had, the dwindling capital budget that's less than $1 million. And I know a lot of people like to compare our district to other districts. We have a pittance in terms of our capital budget compared to the percentages maintained by neighboring districts, right? Dangerously low. And it made perfect sense once you actually look at the facts. We haven't had a bond referendum for 20 years. So all of that good work and investment 20 years ago has since evaporated, right? So it should not be a surprise. Now, I understand it may not have been talked about years ago, but we're at that point and we're running out of time. Now, I'd like to talk about something that's more near and dear to my heart, which is risk management, which I take seriously as well as being a board member. The referendum, of course, is to benefit the students from a learning and education perspective, but it's also to mitigate and avoid material risk. And people should not give that short shrift. So what are we talking about? Well, as part of the laundry list of issues, one, failing infrastructure with massively expensive HVAC systems that are on their last legs, a patchwork of roofs that at any time can have issues and be cost prohibitive as part of our capital budget, a security system that should be modernized for the health and protection of our students, an unremarkable and uninspiring technology platform that needs upgrade. And you shouldn't include the STEM lab because that was a private donation, right? And IBM, that's a private donation. Learning tools and workspaces that need to be improved, and learning areas that are reminiscent of the 80s. This is not what you would expect in Watchung. So that's why the investment is needed. So for those that are the most vocal in advocating to vote no for the referendum, you're entitled to your opinion, certainly. But I'm not in favor of kicking the can down the road. I'm not in favor of more Band-Aids. I'm not in favor of some promise that's illusory and nebulous about a future referendum that somehow some unknown people with some unknown time on their hands are going to figure out, put together, and then bring forth before the board again, right? In essence, this is a plan of hope. Hope that the HVAC systems don't collapse in the middle of the winter. Hope that our security is good enough. Hope that the technology doesn't give out and maybe your kids won't fall behind. Hope that they'll be motivated to go to school in the workspaces that they currently have. Hope that you're motivating the educators with the falling apart cabinets. Hope is not a plan. So what I would say is that I take our responsibility very seriously, my responsibility very seriously, right? And I sleep well at night because I know if we didn't put this forth to the public for the referendum, imagine what would happen if any of these risks materialized. Who would be first in line at the podium to say, why didn't the board do something? How come you didn't escalate? Why didn't you let us know? What were you waiting for? This was obvious. Couldn't you see it? So that's why we're bringing it forth, in my opinion, right? It's to mitigate those risks, not for some future promise that's ambiguous, that no one knows where it's coming from, or how it's doing, or a mail flyer that has misspellings with some anonymous LLC that's telling you that don't worry about it. We'll take care of it later. In my opinion, that's a loser. It's a losing case. So I am personally voting for this, for the referendum, obviously. I think it's good for the school district. I think it's a modest amount of money for what we're getting. And I agree with everything Mr. Buccarelli said. Thank you.
Okay. Thank you. We'll move on to comments from the public. Please remember to state your name and address, and this could be on any item, and anyone who is on Zoom, just please remember to raise your hand so that we can unmute you and call on you.
Hi, can you hear me?
Yes.
Hi, Lindsay Goodlow, 16 Upper Drive. I just want to start by thanking the entire board and all the professionals for bringing this referendum to the public. It's so important, and I don't usually comment at these meetings, but I thought that I had to, given the gravity of this issue and all of the discussion and misinformation I've been seeing on social media and contained in a mailer from unidentified concerned citizens. There's an enormous amount of scientific research on the environmental factors affecting learning environments for our children, as well as workspace satisfaction for retention of teachers. Most of the comments thus far have been hyper-focused on cost, and this referendum is a quality of life issue in Watchung. This referendum is about supporting our kids, our teachers, renovating outdated learning spaces, many of which haven't been updated since the 60s, and fixing a failing roof and HVAC system. Much of the costs are deferred maintenance from neglect by past boards. And as for the cost, these projects will need to be done regardless of whether the referendum passes. And if it fails, it will cost Watchung taxpayers almost 30% more, as we will lose out on critical state funding. A yes vote on December 14th is a vote for our kids and our property values. And I urge all my neighbors to support this important initiative. Thanks.
Thank you.
Good evening. My name is Hans Jewett. I reside on Edgewood Drive next to the culvert, just being replaced because it wasn't replaced in time. We're Watchung residents for over 40 years. Both of our children went to these schools and went to the high school. I think back in those days, the high school was rated like 11th in the state of New Jersey. My wife has spent time teaching in both of these schools. You may know the name, Phyllis Jewett. I'm really looking more at a clarification and what the implication is. There was an article in the Echo Sentinel not too long ago, and it was from one of the board members that addressed the HVAC system, and it starts out, I'll just read part of it. HVAC replacements typically cost more than $7 million, and that the district has less than $1 million in the capital reserve. And there is no plan B, he said. If these rooftop units go down, that means shut down, one or both of the schools may have to be closed, and we just don't have enough money to replace it. I find it, very difficult when we have people saying we're going to close schools. In 45 years, I don't believe a Watchung school has been closed because of facility issues. Does anybody know, Mr. Buccarelli, and if you went after, you did this research, did you find any facility that was closed because of a rooftop failure? I don't know of any in Warren. I've never heard of that happening. And I assume when it says if the units fail, that they're all going to fail at one time. And that usually doesn't happen. Usually a unit goes bad, you get a long maintenance record, and we have no details on this $7 million. I bet $7 million is going to be spent. We do know from the facilities report, which is 4 pages on both schools on the HVAC systems, we're being asked to spend $6.5 million on 3 pages of survey, not an engineering site. But we know we've replaced either 6 or 9 of the 17 units that we have on our schools. I think, what is it? Valley View has 11, and I think Bayberry has 6 or something of that nature. So there's 17, either 6 or 9 have been replaced. So we have like 10 to go. Was there a crisis when those units were replaced? Yes, no. Did we just normally replace them? What would be nice, I can send these questions in, and maybe we can even get these posted, the answer to these questions posted before the referendum. But if we have 10 units, say, to replace, a typical 25-ton train quality air conditioning unit, you can go on the web. Material-wise, is about $25,000. If you get it installed by a regular contractor, it's usually double the price of the material, so it'll be 50. If you do prevailing wage, like we have to, it'll probably be about 75. So we have 10 units to go. At 75,000 units, that's $750,000. When I read this, I ask the question, where's the other 5 million going to that's going to shut down the classrooms? Most of the classrooms are unit ventilators. I've actually seen unit ventilators that are 60 years old that still function fine. So I think what the board needs to do, and I think what the residents of Watchung need to do, they need to look at this. No question something needs to be done. But they need to look at, we can actually take care of what is referred to in the article here by the board. I assume this is an official board position, by our reserve. We have enough in the reserve if we had to do all of it, and that never happens. Okay, unit goes, you replace it, you fix it. So the question really that has to be asked is, do we need to spend that other $5 million now? And that's true with some of the other projects. Or can we better plan to spend that $5 million? Thank you. If you have any questions, I'm glad to answer them. If I send these in writing, will there be response to those? Does the board respond to questions or?
We have a web address, an email address for referendum questions.
Okay. And,
So,
and they
yes.
get responded to?
Yes, you do.
Okay, thank you very much.
Thank you. We have 2 hands raised.
We have Karen ready to talk.
Good evening. Karen?
Yes.
Tuttle Road. Just like to make 3 points. The first is when you ridicule someone about a flyer that was sent out yesterday with his misspelling. It's interesting that the second bullet on your why do we need the referendum, the second bullet ends in a preposition. So considering that this is coming from the Board of Ed that's in charge of educating the children in this town, maybe you should look at grammatical errors before you put up documentation. Which also leads me into what part of this money is really going towards enhancing the academic achievement of the students of this district. When there hasn't been budgeting, you admit that there's been no planning as far as capital expenditures. But yet we need an outside learning activity place. That seems like you're trying to buy a Mercedes when you can afford a less expensive car. So that is concerning to me. There hasn't been planning, but yet now we're told we have to do everything. I think that people in the town would be more willing to be positive about this if there were such dire needs on building facilities that we did it for that. But when there are words to make it nicer, make it more enjoyable. I think when we have 240 apartments coming into this district, and there's no planning as far as this money as to how you're going to adapt to the influx of those students. When I hear that our ESL has doubled in the past year, which is a tremendous concern, where's the money to address these issues? When you say that facilities and counseling affect the children and their mental health, well, obviously, when there's more stress on the system because of ESL and other issues, what happens then to the other students as well? So my second point is that you have that we are eligible for 34% of aid. As I understand, this isn't a guarantee, correct? No response?
No, it is. The states said that the 96% of our projects are qualify for the state aid.
So this is guaranteed that the state will be contributing 34% of the 96%.
As long as they continue to fund that grant, that money, yes, and that's statewide.
What do you mean
They're eligible
continue
for
to?
that money.
I don't understand what that means.
It means that if we submitted it now, we'd be eligible.
Okay. My third thing is that why not just put the things that are important now? If the HVC is in such disrepair, and also to have misleading statements that, are you telling me that there are things in the building that are not ADA compliant that haven't been addressed? Then why haven't they been addressed? If you're non-compliant with ADA things, shouldn't that have been a priority 1 year ago, 2 years ago, 3 years ago? So if you're saying that it's ADA things, don't mislead us, because that doesn't go over well. And as far as, you know, for 15 years since the last referendum we've had, and you've said that the referendum wasn't passed the last time, but then what was done to augment? Nothing. If you're saying you have no money in a capital improvement account, that's your budgeting. We, the townspeople, depend on you to trust you so that you will budget. We're trying to teach our children responsible behavior. This is not responsible. Responsible behavior is to plan for events in the future. There's no future planning here for the apartments. There's no future planning for the stress of the ESL. Where is that planning? We're adding money into a budget for a theater assistant. My kids did great plays in this school without a theater assistant. The teachers were able to handle it. Was it Broadway? No. It was a very appropriate, well done, energetic, fun event for the kids and parents. So we should take the cream off of the referendum. No one in this town is against putting money into necessities. But when you package all the other things, and when you say you've been planning this for 2 years, you know that
Thank you.
meetings
Can
have
I
not been
respond?
input.
A couple points based on what you said. Okay,
Sure, just make it brief.
I'll make it brief. So a couple of things. One, I think we all agree with you that the fact that we're in this position is disappointing. The board that's sitting up here is not to blame for planning. This is part of the planning for the future. We're also replenishing our capital reserves. Now that we have a full-time superintendent and a full-time business administrator, they've taken on, and we've challenged them to build up that capital reserves so that in the future, maybe we can be like Warren, who, by the way, has what, 3 times the number of students that we do. So it's not really a fair comparison, but the hope is that we get to the point where we can do a referendum like they are, use our capital reserves, and take advantage of the state funding. So we are building up our capital reserves, and we are planning. As for the ADA, it's, again, this board has not been here much more than 2-3 years. The ADA has been grandfathered in. And one of our board members pointed that out and said, we don't have to do this. But we, the rest of us, voted to say, this is important and we should upgrade them because it is the right thing to do. As for the new students, we have a survey, we've done an evaluation that says we're going to have approximately 70 new students. The schools can handle that facilities-wise. And that's all that this capital budget can really support is the facilities. And we can support 70 new students. And then as for your ESL comment, that talks to operation expenses. This bond is purely for capital expenses. So when we go into our budgeting season, which is going to be starting very soon, we will be addressing operational expenses. I'll leave it at that. I think that covers everything.
Okay.
Oh, and
thank you.
I'm sorry, last thing. I thought, I might have been mistaken, but I thought she said that the board sent that mailer. The board did not send that mailer. Let's be very clear. The board did not send that mailer. I thought she might have said that.
Yeah, excuse me, Mr. Kraft?
I just want to let you know that this isn't set up as a back and forth. So it is past 3 minutes for your comment. We're going to move on to other community members who have their hands raised so that they have an opportunity to speak. And you can always raise your hand at an additional time. And we can call on you after we give the opportunity for other community members to make their comment. Thank you.
Thank you. Daryl Eisenberg Connecton, Oakwood Road East. I've been asked by many neighbors how I plan on voting in the Tuesday, December 14th referendum for investments in our local schools. I will be voting yes. The last time our schools have had significant physical improvements, I was a student still at the local Watchung schools. Now my first grader is using the same bathrooms, the same closets and casework, the same flooring that I used at Bayberry. Many of the HVAC systems and roofs are past their useful life and have to be replaced. Security needs to be improved at the entrance of the schools. The facilities need to be brought up to standard to accommodate ADA concerns. By bringing these projects to a town vote, the schools become eligible for state aid up to about $5 million. The annual tax impact per home is roughly $267. The last time the schools had a referendum, the tax impact was over $800 a year for the average household. My kids, your kids, and your neighbors' kids deserve to attend a school that reflects the level of education we have come to expect in Watchung. If anyone listening to this call still needs more information, please visit watchungschools.com. I'm voting yes on Tuesday, December 14th. Thank you.
Thank you. We have another hand raised.
Mr. Ruck.
Hi, can you hear me?
Yes.
Hi, yes, Bruce Ruck, 13 Lakeview Avenue. I heard a lot of great comments, and it's obvious that the board has put a tremendous amount of time and effort and work into this, and I commend you guys for that. I'm certainly not qualified to tell you whether you need new ACs or ADA bathrooms or anything, but my comment goes back to something to Mr. Buccarelli, I believe he said. And it's all the equipment it needs to be replaced because it is or is approaching the end of its life. My concern is not now if we have to spend this money. My concern is in 10 years when the useful life is up, or 20 years when the useful life is up, that we're replacing everything all at once. And are we going to have to do the same exact thing in 10 or 20 years when everything's useful life has to be replaced again? I don't know. Maybe it should be staggered. I'm not the expert. I know when I tried to buy cars in my family, I have 4 cars, 2 kids, mine, my wife's. I've tried to stagger it so I don't have to buy 2, 3, 4 cars in a given year. I know that I'm going to try to stagger when I need to redo my roof versus my AC versus my everything else because I just won't have it, can't do it. So that's my only comment to consider is there a plan to, if you're going to do this, which is, hey, you're the school board, you're the experts, I'm not. But please consider putting a plan in place now that could be followed for changing over the equipment as we move forward, so that we don't go 20 years and have to replace everything at one time, or 10 years, or 5 years. Because by then, I will hopefully be retired and not going to want to be able to afford more than I have to. So really consider that for the people that are retired, that are unlimited incomes right now. Can any of this be staggered over 2 years, 5 years, 6 years? I don't know the answer to that. You guys are the experts. But really, if you're going to do this, get that plan in place so we don't get stuck this way again. And just raising the bonds and tax, that's not the answer. It's got to be staggered in such a way. And please consider staggering now if it's feasible to do so. Thank you.
Thank you. We have another hand raised.
Hi, Frank Pizzignano, Jared Court. I am, first of all, grateful for the board for their work. I'm grateful for the superintendent for rallying around enhancing everything within the system, both physical, educational, and emotional. I'm quite struck by the conversation. In 2018, there was plenty of risk in the system. The risk was at Bayberry, no playground, an unobstructed driveway, and a blacktop that we threw our kids out on to use for recess. When I tried to address the issue, there was no money in the system. So instead, private funds built a playground, and private funds built a STEM lab. And there is no reserve in our system. We have people who move into this town, and the number one thing they care about are the schools. The schools. And the number one thing everyone here cares about is their children. Maybe after that, their home values. And we've all heard that everyone has a point of view on HVAC. And I think modern day HVAC in a COVID-induced world is a pretty good idea. And that's a risk management, that's a safety, that's our children. So I find it very interesting. We have, I don't know, I heard about some flyer. I guess I didn't see the flyer, but I don't open my mail. My wife does, and maybe we didn't see it, but it doesn't really matter about a flyer. What matters is, do you care about your schools? Do you care about your home value? Do you care about the system? Are you fiscally responsible? It is not fiscally responsible to run without a referendum, without a reserve. And anyone who researches or pays attention to moving to this town and looks at this video will see that actually those on the school board who drove this and those who run the schools as they are trying to make it a better Watchung. So as a person who put a lot of money into the system because there was no money in the system, I'd like to know what you're going to do. And those who want to talk about the heating and HVAC and let's run it till end of life are just running on some platform that have no idea what they're doing. Invest in the school system, fix what's wrong in the system, put the right reserves in. It's been underfunded. This board was put in to fix the problems of the past. And I could hear the voices that actually caused the problems of the past by not wanting to invest in the system. So I'm voting yes. I encourage you to do the right thing. And if somebody wants to call me up and talk about it, I'm happy to, on any level, economically, educationally, emotionally. And, you know, I think the idea of not investing in our schools and not doing this referendum is an idea to drive down home values. That's what I say, and hurt our children. So vote yes. I'm voting yes. And anybody wants to be on the other side of it, give me a call.
Thank you. Okay, I don't see any other hands raised. Oh, sorry.
Gail Tafaro, 26 Beechwood Place. I just wanted to just mention something because I've been on board with you, and there's a lot of your community that doesn't know about this referendum or even the voting. And these are senior citizens and parents that don't have children in the school system, and they feel left out. So I just wanted to say that in Warren, they went to town council meetings and represented the referendum there. They sent out emails to all their community members so that they knew about this referendum. They also sent out flyers. We didn't get a flyer from the BOE here, which I was disappointed because I think that would have helped explain things to the community a little bit more. I believe that all the residents will be paying for a referendum that we pass. And this referendum is needed to help our schools become even better. We need to reach every constituent in this town. And the only way you can is not just by technology. You have to be able to get to them with written material sent to their homes and so forth. With that, I just want to say my heart feels really good seeing all the wonderful activities you have going on for the students after school. And it's nice to see the presentations here too tonight. Try and reach everyone in our community. That's the most important thing, to be able to pass these referendums. Thank you.
Thank you. I believe we have Dennis Bagos' hand raised.
Yes, good evening. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Perfect. Yeah, thank you. I did dial into the call a little late. I did want to make a comment, first of all, about the Tree of Lights and the ceremony there and the great educational tribute that was done last Saturday night at that ceremony. I thought it was terrific. So just wanted to say that the way that our educators were honored was excellent. It was great to see so many faces up there on the dais. Related to the referendum, I think that the Board of Education has established a need, and there are certain, in any referendum, I think that there's going to be certain must-haves, some related needs, and some aspirational needs. And I think that, you know, we haven't done a referendum in whatever it is, 15 or 20 years. We could debate, you know, what's necessary or what's not necessary. I kind of hope that debate has been happening within the borders of the Board of Education this entire year, as I've been hearing the discussion and the evolution of the discussion all year long. I think, you know, the fact that the price tag has gone down from $18+ million to $15 million tells me that there has been some discussion, compromise, tension, which I think is a good thing between board members and different people with different ideas coming up and saying what's on their mind and how we can make things better. I also think that the investment in our schools is really important. Joe Barbella said a couple of months ago about emphasize how we can't really continue correcting our problems with Band-Aid solutions. And we have a unique opportunity here with low interest rates. And, you know, I think that there's a mix of things that are necessary here and aspirational. Do I agree with everything in here? Maybe not. You know, I think that there's a list and that does not tally up to an insignificant amount that I'm not necessarily in agreement with, but I think that directionally, this is the correct way to go. I plan on voting yes for the referendum. And I think that we need to take advantage of this opportunity. The thing that strikes me is that if it gets delayed and we come up with a different profile of a referendum, then we're, instead of looking at a 2023 date of having everything done, we're looking at a 2024 or 2025 type of time period. Do we have that kind of time to resolve the problems? You know, I keep coming back to the directionally correct way that our community, our schools, our students need to move. I think that this referendum, as imperfect as it may be along the way, is directionally correct for our community. And I'm grateful for all the work that's being done. And I'm appreciative that the Board of Education has listened to the community along the way. I didn't get the impression there was massive participation or attendance at a lot of the meetings, but I do think that that this is the right way to go. And I appreciate all the work that's happened here. So thank you very much. And let's also remember that there isn't any referendum out there for whether it's infrastructure or whether it's technology or anything else that's going to guarantee some sort of student achievement or academic performance or state rankings or anything like that. That there is never going to be you know, something that guarantees that kind of performance. And I'm very worried that if this does not pass, then we are going to be going out 2, 3, 4 years out. And do we have that kind of time? I just don't think so. So thank you for your time, and I appreciate all the efforts. And I'll miss a lot of the comments, but I'm sure I'll hear about them later. Thank you.
Hello? I can't hear you for some reason. I don't know why I'm muted. Hold on. There we go. Is it my turn? Hello? I'm off again.
No, you can
There we go. Hello?
Yes.
Okay. Just thank you, Mr. Kraft, for responding to some of my points. And I appreciate that. Just one clarification. I didn't say that you sent out the mailer that came out this week or something like that. My point about a grammatical error was on the PowerPoint that was posted on the BOE site. So it wasn't to do with the mailing, it was to do with the PowerPoint. Secondly, I just want to reiterate that there's probably very few people in the position that I'm in, is that not only was I educated in the Watchung Borough system through the public school system all the way, but so were my children, which afforded me and my children opportunities beyond what I could have imagined could be achieved. I'm a huge proponent of a strong, powerful, excellent school system here. I think where there's hesitation upon the town is that unfortunately, this was done during the pandemic era. So as far as communication from the work that you have all done to the public has been so much thwarted because of conditions of not open meetings. Not your fault, just a situational event. But then also, as I said, I understand based on my educational background, psychosocial, etc. But when we have had, unfortunately, poor management of the district, not related to you board members, the consideration of doing, as someone said, maybe a little bit more of a stepped process. As far as an inflationary rate, if a year they're saying they're holding interest rates down into 22. So third quarter, something like that. So the little bit of the fear of that is disturbing to me when that's used by Mr. Buccarelli. But yes, we need a powerful system, but we want to see the schools improve. We want to see that this has a direct impact on the students, on their academic achievements. No, it's not a guarantee. Nothing in this world is guaranteed. But there are certain things that can be done. Smaller class size, lower ratios, things like that. And I'm not sure when we're adding something that will add a teacher, you have an outside area that has to be supervised. We need someone supervising that area. That's another salary. That's another additional cost. So when we're in a tight financial situation as it is, that's my concern.
I can't hear anything.
No, we can't hear anything.
There's no audio, guys.
George?
It's muted. Her mic is muted. We can't hear.
Hey, just give me a minute here trying to resolve this. Could we try again?
Hello, can people on Zoom hear me?
Yes, we can.
Okay, I think it's resolved.
Okay, thank you.
Okay. Okay. It's Phyllis Jewett. I live at 20 Elsinore Drive. I've been here for about 45 years. I've taught here and my children have gone to school here. Watchung's always been a little private school. We love the town. As you can tell, I'm out there working all the time on traffic and beautification, so I care much about the town and the school. Now, Mr. Buccarelli and Mr. Basignano, I'm just addressing this to you because we didn't get a report that would be objective, that would tell us, the people in town, as to what is wrong, what has to be fixed. We just don't still know. I don't know what's wrong with the air conditioners. I don't know what's wrong with the things on the roof. I don't know how many years the roof has left. I don't know these things. And all of a sudden we get a referendum that we have to spend $50 million. That's what's upsetting to most of the people that I've spoken to. So you should have gotten your own flyer out to tell people as to what needs to be done. They just want to know. They're for the schools. They want the teachers to be happy. They want the children to be healthy. I walk through the schools, not too many people did come through. I could read quite well. It felt okay, but I don't know what's inside all of this equipment. We want to know. And we felt that this got pushed in. We don't know anything about it. And here we are spending $15 million on what? Prove it to me. That's just the way I am. Thank you. I love you all.
Thank you. Okay, I don't see any more hands raised. So we're going to move to adjournment. Can I have a motion to adjourn?
Motion to adjourn.
A second?
Second.
Any discussion?
I do. I just wanted to say, Jessica, thank you and good luck. And I wish we didn't change the way we read proclamations, because it would have been nice to hear everybody do it, but it was an honor to read it. And I wish you good luck. Thank you. And happy holidays and happy New Year to everyone.
Yes.
All in favor, say aye.
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 Right.
Any opposed? Thank you for joining us this evening. This meeting is adjourned.